All right, good afternoon. So, last week, I was able to introduce to you the concepts of inheritance. And based from what we have discussed last week as well, I also have provided a solution of the sample problem which actually applied the concepts of inheritance. So, nasagutan natin tong si number 1, yan, si horse problem, and at the same time tong si rock problem na meron tayo. So, na-realize natin kung gaano ka-challenging and gaano rin at the same time kadali ang mag-apply ng inheritance concept sa mga Java programs na gagawin natin. So, I intentionally didn't actually answer the number 3. It's because I want everyone to practice this problem here para at least alam natin kung paano siya sagutan. So for today, before we proceed with our module number 6 in which talks about the advanced inheritance concepts, I would like to show you the solution for the number 3 problem that we have here. Okay, ready na ba tayo? So, dito sa problem natin, let's try to understand the scenario. The developers of a free online game named Sugar Smash have asked you to develop a class named Sugar Smash Player. So, may clue na agad tayo. Meron na tayo ditong Sugar Smash Player na class na gagawin natin. It will simply hold the data about a single player, and the class will now contain the following fields. Number 1, the player's integer ID number, a string scream name, and an array of integers that stores the highest score achieved in each of 10 game levels. So may array pala tayo ditong i-declare kung saan ilalagay natin yung size niya as 10. Diba? So include get and set methods for each field. So gagawin muna natin to. And the get and set methods for the scores should each require 2 different parameters, one that represents the score achieved and one that represents the game level to be retrieved or assigned. So tingnan natin kung paano natin ito gagawin, no? And display an error message if the user attempts to assign or retrieve a score from a level that is out of range for the array of scores. Additionally, no level except the first one should be set unless the user has earned at least 100 points at each previous level. So, iintindihin natin to later on kasi napaka-basic lang naman nito. It's more of an if statement na gagawin natin. So, if a user tries to set a score for a level that is not yet playable, issue an error message. Create a class named Premium Sugar Smash Player that descends from Sugar Smash Player. So, meaning, since meron tayo ditong Premium Sugar Smash Player, ibig sabihin we will try to inherit the Sugar Smash Player natin na class. Diba? So, descends, ibig sabihin may inheritance tayo na gagawin dito. This particular class is instantiated when a user pays $299 to have access to 40 additional levels of play. As in the free version of the game, a user cannot set a score for a level unless the user has earned at least 100 points at all previous levels. So we will be creating a program that instantiates several objects of each type and demonstrate the methods. So we have 3 different Java files here: Sugar Smash Player, Premium Sugar Smash Player, and Demo Sugar Smash.java. So gawin natin yan, no? Ano ko muna to para madali nating makita. Yan. Siguro paliitin ko pa, no? Viewable naman siguro on your end. So, ganyan po tayo. Try natin siyang... Okay. So, I hope na natin to, nakopy na natin yung concept or yung mismong program natin dun sa rock natin. So, this time, I would like to create here a package. Ang package kasi para ka nag-create ng folder in which you will be placing all of your your Java files sa may Sugar Smash natin. Okay? So, I'll name that as Sugar Smash Package. I'll right-click on that and create another class. According dito, meron tayong Sugar Smash Player. Yan. So, meron tayong Sugar Smash Player na class. So, that's number 1. We also have here another class kung saan meron tayong Premium Sugar Smash Player. And Premium Sugar Smash Player. Tapos meron din tayo ditong Demo Sugar Rush Smash. demo sugar rush smash.java. So, ano yun natin to? Siyempre, gagawin nating medyo maayos ito, no? So, maiksi lang naman tong part ng premium sugar rush. Kasi, according here, we will be inheriting whatever data fields na ilalagay natin dito kay sugar smash player na class natin. So, nasan ba yun? Descends, yung word na descends natin dito. Yan. Hindi ko mahanap. Sige, naduduling ako. Ayun. Descends from sugar smash player. So, we will be extending din this one. Yan. Sugar smash player. Extend natin yan. So, whatever data fields na gagawin natin dito kay sugar smash player will be inherited by this one. The premium sugar smash player. Now, dito sa public class natin na sugar smash player, according here, we have 3 different data fields. ID number, screen name, and array of integers. So, yun yung una muna natin gagawin, di ba? So, in order for us to do that, let's go ahead and start our program with, declaring a private variable, ID. Tapos, we have here a string. Siguro, I'll name that as screen name. Tapos, siguro protected na lang ito. Int, ganyan. Tapos, I'll name this as high scores array. Hindi ako nang yan. Again. For now, wala pang value or size si high scores array na meron tayo. Okay? So, let's create here. Next is for us to create a constructor. Public sugar smash player. Dito kasi natin ilalagay si value. It stores the high score achieved in each of 10 games. So, we have 10 different games dito. So, dito natin ilalagay si high scores array. I'll be putting here a size of the array in which 10 according dun sa mismong program natin. So, meron tayong new int 10. Okay, so we have ID, we have screen name. According here, we have to create a setGet method for each fields. So, dito sa constructor ko siya nilagyan ng size yung high scores array natin na variable. So, gawin natin si public int get ID. Ayan. Tama ba? Get ID. I would like to return the ID. Tapos, we also have here public void set ID, in which ang set natin na ID, yan, reference to itself. We also have here the public string set screen name. Get screen name for now. Let's return screen name. We also have here public void set screen name. Tapos dito sa loob natin is, of course, we have string screen name naman. So this screen name is equal to screen name. So nakalimutan ko dito maglagay ng int ID para kay yan. So, meron tayo kay ID, meron na rin tayo kay screen name. Now, for the score array, according here to from the problem here, the get and set methods for the scores should each require 2 parameters. So, meron tayo, sa may mismong score natin, meron tayong 2 parameters dito. Diba? One that represents the score achieved and one represents the game level to be retrieved or assigned. So, dito, gawin natin si set or gawin muna natin si public int get high score array. Yan. Tapos, we have here public void set high scores array. Ayan, ganyan. So, set get muna natin. Dito, according here, represents the game level. And, ayan. So, lagay tayo dito ng position. And, tapos si high score naman. High score. So, display an error message, according here, if the user attempts to assign or retrieve a score from a level that is out of range for the array of scores. So titignan niya muna if yung ilalagay natin later on sa main method is like more than, and out of the range of the array scores, which is 10, it will automatically create an error. So para hindi tayo mahirapan, gawa na muna tayo dito ng main method. Workout na natin si main method dito. And so we have here public static void main string args. Tapos we have the following. Ang basically kasi titignan kasi natin dito if ito, 'di ba? Igagawin natin, titignan natin if mag-work tong mga methods na i-create natin dito. So meron tayong user input dito. We have here import java.util.scanner, most likely. Tapos, inside the main method here is we have the following variables. We have boolean paying. That should be true or false. We also have here yung ID. Int ID. Ano pa ba? High score. High score. And the count. Bilangin natin yun as 0. We have here the string name. Tapos, we will be using the Sugar Smash player. Yan. And I'll name that as player. Yan. Instantiate na tayo dito. Tapos, si Premium Sugar Smash player, instantiate natin yan as P player at the same time. So, for now, of course, mag-error pa ito kasi wala pa naman tayong totaling nilalagay dito. Now, for the player name, gawa tayo dito ng scanner. Input is equal to new scanner. So, magtanong tayo agad ng user input. System.in. System.out.println. Tapos, enter your player name, most likely. Tapos, let's store that in the name. So, input.next line. Okay. So, input.next line tayo. Ayan. So, in-store natin yung name kay name. Tapos, mamaya mapupunta yan dito kay screen name. So, we also have here the system.out.println. We have enter your ID. So, for the ID, store naman natin yan dito kay ID. So, since, ano yan, input.nextInt naman. Ayan. Tapos, lagay natin dito si input dot next line. Ayan. So, yung input natin ng scanner, lalagay natin siya sa lahat. Okay. So, nagets na natin, no? ID is equal to input.nextInt, input.nextLine for this one. Alright. So, wala na tayong problema. Now, I guess it's actually time for us to ask the user if, ito nga, is instantiated yung Premium Sugar Smash player. It will now be instantiated when a user pays $299 to have access to 40 additional level of play. So, meron din tayo ditong, of course, boolean na gagamitin natin si paying, di ba? Do you want to pay to, nasa yung dollar sign? Nasa yung dollar sign ka, ayun. $299 for 40 more levels. Ayan. So, if yes, of course, paying is equal to input dot next boolean. Ayan. Tapos, input natin, input dot next line as well. Ayan. So, what will happen here is that magkakaroon tayo ng if-else statements. If the user wants to pay, of course, something should happen. Otherwise, something should also happen. So, ang gagawin natin dito basically is for us to analyze the problem carefully. According here, yan, according dito kasi, if the user wants to pay, of course, babalikin sa pinakaumpisa, di ba? So, a user cannot set a score for a level unless the user has earned at least 100 points at all previous levels. So, this sounds like very, very confusing, but then it's really easy to implement. Ayan. So, balik tayo ulit dito, no? Create a class named Premium Sugar Smash Player, which actually descends from the Sugar Smash Player. Now, this class will basically be instantiated kapag gusto natin mag-pay, di ba? If this actually resulted into true, papasok yan dapat dito. Tatawagin natin tong si Premium Sugar Smash Player. Yan. And it will automatically set the high score into more than 10 once again. So, para mas madali nating maintindihan, gawa tayo dito ng public premium or the constructor itself. Tapos we have here high scores array is equal to new, and let's set a size of 50 this time. Alright, so let's continue. Balik tayo dito sa may part ng problem natin in which, nag-create tayo dito ng set and get methods for each field. And according here, display an error message if the user attempts to assign or retrieve a score from a level that is out of the range for the array scores. So dito sa may get high array scores here, meron tayong position kung saan yan yung paglalagyan kasi natin ng array later on, di ba? So dito yung magdedetermine kung ano yung array na yon. So if the position, let's create here an if statement. If the position is less than 0, or at the same time the position is greater than 9. Yan. So, meron tayo ditong system.out.println error. The position entered is out of range. So, ganun siya. Diba? And we will be returning the initial value of the array, which is 0. Else, there will be, let's return the position, high score array, high scores array, yan, ni position. Yung position natin dito natin makikita yan. Okay? And additionally, no level except the first one should be set unless the user has earned at least. So, meron ka munang at least 100 points at each previous level. So, if a user tries to set a score for a level that's not yet available, issue an error message. So, for the setting of high scores array, we will also have here an if statement in which for as long as the position is equal to 0, or at the same time, the high scores array, check natin yung position niya, -1, is actually greater than or equal to 100. What will happen? The high scores array and the position will now be the high score itself. Otherwise, we have here an error message to print line. Oops. Error. You must first get at least 100 points on all previous levels. Your points on all previous levels. Okay. So, ganun siya, no? So, nagawa na natin yung set get methods natin for the high score array. So, okay na rin tong si extends na to natin, si Premium Sugar Smash Player. So, basically, dito na tayo sa may main method in which if the user would like to pay, if the user would like to pay, gamitin natin dito si P-Player from the Premium Sugar Smash Player and we instantiate that one. So, in-instantiate na natin siya dito. And using the P-Player once again, we will be setting the ID. Dito kasi natin ibabato yung ID na in-input natin kanina dito. We will also be setting the screen name. Dito rin natin ilalagay yung name na in-input natin earlier. Diba? Now, for as long as there is a while condition or a loop statement here, for as long as the count is less than 50. Kasi yung count dito mag-iterate yan later on. For as long as the count is less than 50, the high score will always be 0. Tapos, meron tayo ditong another looping statement na titignan niya kung saan if the high score, while the high score is less than 100, it will automatically print here, enter high score for level. Then we will check the level value here, which is count plus 1. Yan. Plus, ganyan. So, basically, input lang yan, no? So, input, lagay natin siya dito kay high score is equal to input.next int. Ayan. Tapos, meron tayong input.next line as well. And lastly, we have here the pPlayer .set high scores array. Pupunta na yan dito sa set high score array, which is yung count natin and the high score itself. Tapos, we will be iterating the count here. Alright, so if the user is still paying, yan, ilagay natin yung pangalan na tinype natin dito kanina. Tapos, for as long as the count is less than 50, so hanggat hindi nyo nare-reach yung 50 dito, ilalagay natin yung high score na ilalagay natin. So, basically, paulit-ulit yan hanggang mag-reach natin si 50 later on. So, tingnan natin, no? I-run natin. Subukan natin i-run. Although, wala pa yung else statement dito, hindi pa siya totally working. So, meron daw error. 43. Asan yan? Karoon pa ako ng error, no? Ito. So, dito na tayo. Yan. So, enter your player name, Ian. Enter your ID. Siguro ganyan. Do you want to pay through? Yan. So, enter high score. Basically, di ba? Nag-enter tayo ng paulit-ulit. Yan. So, paulit-ulit yan. Hanggang sa 50. 50 times tayong So, kapag na-reach na yung 50 dito, yan, magiging okay na. Kapag na-reach na yung 50, magiging okay na. And, magpo-proceed tayo ngayon dito. Or mag-e-end na yung program natin. Diba? So, I think this should be count plus plus. Not count. Yan. So, mali ako dito eh. Kasi diba naulit. Napapansin nyo naulit kanina yung numbers. So, otherwise, if the player doesn't actually want to pay, yan. So, meron tayong player. Instantiate natin si Sugar Smash player dito. We will be setting the ID. Yan. We will set the ID. Oops. We will also be setting the screen name. Yan. Tapos, hoarding here. For as long as the count is less than 10, the high score will always be 0. Basically, yung array natin dito natin kasi ini-store, okay? Dito natin ini-store lahat ng mga high score na tina-type natin kunwari. Okay? So, the high score here is 0. And for as long as the high score is less than 100, of course, magpiprint tayo dito ng yung parang kanina lang. Yan. High score is equal to input dot next int, otherwise input dot next line, next line. Yan. Tapos we have here, set natin yung player dot set high score array, which is count, and high score, tapos count plus plus. So basically parang kanina lang, pero this time yung count natin dito is 10, not 50. Ayan. So tapos we are only allowed to, to enter at least 100 na high score na meron. So subukan natin i-run to. Ganyan po ang inheritance, no? We are trying to inherit some particular classes. ID, this is false, for example. Yan. So, kapag ka level 1, meron tayong, you need to at least get 100 points according here. Yan. So, levels. So, kapag ka hindi 100, no? Ayaw niya. Hindi siya nagpo-proceed sa panibagong level. Ayun. So, kapag ka nag-proceed na siya dito, okay na. Wala ka na magiging problem, no? So, that's actually how this program works. I hope makopy ninyo to on your own. Try nyo i-copy para at least mapag-aralan nyo and magawa nyo siya sa part ninyo at the same time. So, mukha lang siyang complicated pero madali lang talaga siyang i-implement, no? Yeah, simple if-else statement lang naman ang ginamit natin dito. Okay? So, do you have any questions so far? That's basically the sample program sample problem na meron tayo na iniwan ko from last week kasi gusto ko talagang gawin nyo to on your own. So, I hope kahit ito lang yung magawa ninyo, okay na sa akin yan. Wala na tayong magiging problema dyan kasi at least alam nyo nang gumawa ng class or at least an object with the following data fields at the same time. Alright, so right now, let's go ahead and proceed here with our module number 6, in which we will actually talk about what we call the advanced inheritance concept. So you have to make sure that you at least understood the concept of inheritance, because for now, we will be at least upskilling that knowledge that we had from last week. Meron tayong mga advanced inheritance concepts dito in which you need to apply as well. So for now, let's actually talk about the way on how we create using abstract classes. Okay. In terms of the development of new classes, it's actually easier after you understand the concepts of inheritance. Diba? Mag-agree kayo dyan. Kasi diba, madali na lang siyang mag-create na class, especially kapag alam nyo na yung mga data fields na ilalagay nyo. Now, when you extend the classes, your child classes will also inherit all those general attributes already defined in the base class. Now, you also must create the new and more specific attributes for the subclass. For example, yung salaried employee natin and an hourly employee are more specific than the employee class. Now, they can inherit the general employee attributes such as probably the name, the number, yung mga ganyan, last name, first name, but they add some specific attributes such as unique pay calculating methods, A superclass contains the features that are shared by all of its subclasses. So alam naman natin yan na kapag meron tayong parent class, lahat ng mga child classes natin may inherit kung ano man yung nasa parent. Diba? For example, the attributes of the dog class are shared by every poodle and spaniel. Diba? So you have your main dog class, meron siyang attributes as well. Tapos meron ka ngayong class na poodle and meron kang spaniel. Those subclasses are more specific examples of superclasses types. They add more features to be shared, general features. Now, conversely, when you examine a subclass, you get that its parent is more general and less specific. For example, animal is more general than dog. So, let's try to recall from the previous module here, the terms base class, superclass, and parents are equivalent. Pare-pareho po sila. So, ganun din kapag tinawag natin na derived class, subclass, and child classes. They're also the same. Also, we have to recall that a child class can contain all the members of its parent, whether those members are public, protected, or private. However, a child object cannot directly access a private member inherited from a parent. Now, when we say concrete class, it is one from which you can instantiate objects. Sometimes a class is so general that you never intend to create any specific instances of the class. Now, for example, meron tayo yung you might intend never to create an object that is just an employee. Each employee is more specifically a salaried employee, hourly employee, or contract employee. Later on, I'll show you an example program in which demonstrates the concrete classes and what we call the abstract classes. Kasi pag sinabi kasi nating abstract classes, from the word itself, abstract, di ba? Hindi mo alam abstract, hindi mo alam yung ano yung laman niya, di ba? In Module 5, we actually learned that you can create final classes, yung may mga final, di ba, na keyword, if you don't want other classes to be able to extend them. Now, those classes that you declared to be abstract are the opposite. Your only purpose in creating them is to enable other classes to extend them. Now, if you attempt to instantiate an object from an abstract classes, you receive an error message from the compiler that you have committed an instantiation error. And you will be using the word abstract when you declare an abstract classes. Pakita natin dito later on. Ito. This is an example of an abstract class. Pero in reality, hindi masyado nagagamit to be honest with you. Pero of course, we need to at least discuss this muna. Magbibigay ako ng example kung paano siya i-declare. Now, those abstract classes can include two different method types. Number one, non-abstract methods. Like those you can create in any classes are implemented in an abstract class and are simply inherited by its children. We also have the abstract methods in which it doesn't have any body, yan, no curly braces and no statements, and they must be implemented in child classes. Usually, the abstract classes, it contains at least one abstract method. When you create an abstract method, you provide the keyword abstract and the rest of the method header, including the method type, the name, the parameters. And however the declaration ends there, you do not provide curly braces or any statements within the method, just a semicolon. Now, when making the abstract declaration, you will be declaring a class to be an abstract, and each of its methods can be abstract or not. If you declare a method to be abstract as well, you also must declare its class to be abstract. So parang ito, yung example natin dito sa may figure na nakikita natin dito, you have a public abstract class animal, yan, which means no animal objects can be created anymore. So wala ka na diyang may instantiate, di ba? Maglalagay ka lang ng word na abstract. So you have the string name, you have also the public abstract void speak, meaning pagka naglagay ka ng abstract keyword sa method na tinatawag mo, yan, child classes must contain a speak method. So lahat ng magiging child classes mo na i-inherit si animal should contain a speak method. So meron kang get name, meron kang set name dito. Diba? Suppose that you want to create a class to represent different animals such as dog and cow. Yan. You can create a generic abstract class named animal. So nandito siya lahat. So you can provide generic data fields such as the animal's name. Ayan. Only one. So basically kasi lahat ng animal, kung gusto natin, pwede natin sila lagyan ng pangalan. Diba? An animal is generic, but all specific animals make a sound. Now, if you code an empty speak method in abstract animal classes, you require all future animal subclasses. Take note, you will be requiring all the future animal subclasses to code a speak method at the same time. Diba? So, tignan natin dito. Yung animal class natin kasi, here, sa class na create natin dito, is declared an abstract. You cannot create a class in which you declare an animal object, which a statement such as the following. Ito. So, animal, my pet, yan, equals yung animal, hindi siya pwede. Diba? So, any program that attempts to instantiate an animal object doesn't compile. So, kung susubukan mo to ngayong i-instantiate sa main method natin, hindi po ito magko-compile. Animal is an abstract class, so no animal objects can exist. Okay. Now, you create an abstract class such as animal only so you can extend it. For example, ito. Because we have here the dog, since it's an animal, we can simply safely assume that the dog can inherit all the methods or all the data fields na meron kay animal, such as its name. Now, since nag-declare din tayo dito ng abstract na method, which is speak, required din na magkaroon tayo dito ng speak na method sa lahat. Yan, di ba? You can create a dog class as a child class of animal. It's like this one. So, ang i-instantiate mo ngayon is not the animal class, but then the dog class itself. When we say instantiate, ito yung pag-new dito. Diba? Ayan. So, yung speak method natin kanina dito within the dog class is required because, of course, you want to create the dog objects and the abstract parent animal class contains an abstract speak method. Recall this one. Again, pag naglagay tayo dito ng abstract na keyword, meaning the methods, itong method na speak na to will be required for each and every class that will inherit the animal class. Now, let's try to recall here from Module 5 that the override annotation for the speak method is not necessary, but it provides error checking and documentation. Well, technically, the speak method simply implements the empty parent class methods as well as overrides it. Now, if the animal is an abstract class, you cannot instantiate an animal object. Pero, ito nga yung sinabi ko kanina, if dog is a concrete class, instantiating a dog object is perfectly legal. And when you code the following, you can simply create a dog object. Ito, yung kanina bawal yung animal. Pero ang dog, my pet equals new dog, and the name of the dog here, which is Murphy, which probably will simply be, transferred to the class dog itself. Diba? So, When you call the myPet.speak, the correct dog speak method executes. Yan. So we have an example here na nakikita natin dito sa may natin, no? So we have the animals, the use animals main method, in which yung use animals main method natin will simply instantiate the dog. Yan. Yung dog naman, which is ito, it simply inherits the animal class, which is an abstract, which contains the name, the set and the get method for the name, and the abstract method for speak. So basically, since nag-instantiate ka rin dito ng cow, ayan, nag-instantiate ka dito ng cow, my cow, this also, inherits all the animal attributes, which is the name, diba? Tapos, automatic, required din si speak method, kasi nga abstract yan eh. So, meron ka dyang my cow, my snake, tapos you will be setting their names, tapos you will be calling the speak method for each. Ayan. So, I hope gawin natin to, no? This is an example on how abstract classes should work in Java programming. So, I suggest na you get your IDE, your IntelliJ, or your NetBeans and recreate the following. So, first, you have to create a class animal. So, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different classes for this one. So, madali lang naman siyang gawin, no? Napaka-basic example natin. And madali lang din siya i-implement. Basta ang abstract, ibig sabihin, abstract yan. Nandyan lang siya. Pero, that can serve as the parent class. Pero kapag ka nag-declare ka na class as an abstract class, hindi mo siya pwedeng instantiate. But rather, pwede mo lang siyang i-inherit using the subclasses na meron tayo. So, yun yung pwede mo ngayon instantiate, yung mga subclasses mo. Kagaya ng example natin dito sa module natin. Alright? Now, let's move on here in what we call the dynamic method binding. Now, when you create a superclass and one or more subclasses, each object of each subclass is, of course, technically a superclass object. And every salaried employee is an employee. Every dog is an animal. The opposite is not true. Superclass objects are not members of any of their subclasses. Now, an employee is a salaried employee, is not a salaried employee, perhaps. An animal is not a dog, pero a dog is an animal. Diba? So, magka-separate yan eh. Because every subclass objects is a superclass member. You can convert subclasses objects to superclass objects. Now, as you are aware, when a superclass is an abstract, just like what we had earlier, you cannot instantiate those objects. Pero yun nga, you can indirectly create a reference to a superclass abstract object. And a reference is not an object, but it points to a memory address. Now, let's take a look at here at the example. Itong figure natin na animal reference application. We have a main method here in which the variable animal ref is a type of animal. Ito. No superclass animal object is created, none can be, but instead, the dog and the cow objects are created using the new keyword. So, ibig sabihin na ito, even though the animal here is an abstract classes, tapos naglagay tayo ng animal ref dito, you can indirectly instantiate them. Diba? You can directly instantiate them using the class na meron tayo kanina. Hindi mo siya pwedeng new animal dito. Hindi nga pwede yun. Pero you can indirectly instantiate that by using the animal or the class cow, class dog na meron tayo. And the magic here is that you can also call the speak method for each of the animal ref na animal reference na ginawa mo or in-instantiate mo from that one. So, in this case, ang mababasa dito na speak method is from the cow class, not from the animal class. Kasi si cow, in-inherit niya si animal. Diba? Now, the application here, the application of the figure demonstrates what we call polymorphic behavior. And the same statement, animal ref.speak, it repeats after the animal ref is assigned to each new animal type. So, yan, ganun lang. Ulitin ko lang yung sasabihin ko, no? But then, in the module number 5, we actually learned that in Java, all instance methods calls are virtual method calls by default. And the methods that is used to determine when the program runs because the type of the object used might not be known until the method executes. Now, an application's ability to select the correct subclass methods depending on the argument type is what we call the dynamic method binding. And when the application executes, the correct method is attached or bound to the application based on the current. Parang ito, itong ginawa natin kanina dito, di ba? The dynamic method binding, also called late method binding. The opposite of dynamic method binding is static, or yung meron tayong tinatawag na fixed method binding. In Java, instance methods that receive a this reference use dynamic binding. Those class methods use static method binding at the same time. So, tingnan natin dito in the example. In this section, the objects using speak happen to be related. The cow and the dog are both animals. But be aware that polymorphic behavior can apply to non-related classes as well. For example, a debate student and a ventriloquist's dummy also might speak. When polymorphic behavior depends on method overloading, it is what we call ad hoc polymorphism. Now, when it depends on using a superclass as a method parameter, it is called pure polymorphism or inclusion polymorphism. Now, let's take a look at this example here. Meron tayong public class talking animal demo, but then you notice here that inside this class, we have two different methods. We have the main method, and ito main method na to. Tapos meron ka ditong public static void din na talking animal, which simply accept any object that descends from the animal class na ginawa natin kanina. So you can actually try this on your own. Yan. Because we can basically use a superclass, yung pinaka-method, yung pinaka-class natin kanina, yung animal, as a method parameter type. In this example here, yung talking animal na to, we are using the animal class as a method parameter. Yun yung tinatawag natin dito. So, come one, come all, di ba? Yan yung nagpiprint. See the amazing talking animal. Basically, nagpiprint yan, or tinatawag natin dito si animal, that get name. Ano yung animal natin dito? Depende kung ano yung ibabato natin or tatawagin natin dito. In this case, we are calling the talking animal, which is dog. And the dog here was instantiated from the dog class earlier. So, yung kung ano man yung pangalan ni dog na Ginger dito, yun yung magpapakita dito kay get name, si Ginger. And the speak will now be the barf earlier na created natin from the dog class itself. So, that's how you use a superclass as a method parameter type. But then, this sounds like confusing, pero in reality, hindi siya totally nagagamit kasi medyo nakakalito talaga. Di ba? Especially in game development, hindi ko to masyado ginagamit kasi bakit pa ako gagamit ng class as a method parameter type kung pwede ko naman siyang tawagin directly, 'di ba? So yun yung idea nun. Pero syempre for an advanced reading or advanced knowledge, in-inform ko lang kayo about this one. Right? So in this part of our discussion here, let's try to create here a program that simply discussed or shows how abstract classes works. So, meron tayong gagawin na abstract classes vehicle. Yan. Tapos, yung vehicle na yan, it will include some field for the power source, number of wheels, and so on. So, ano natin yan, no? Gawin natin yan dito. So, let's create here a package. Tapos, vehicle. Gawin natin yan na vehicle. Tapos, let's create here a Java class. I'll name this as vehicle. Yan. Now, for this one, I would like to declare this as an abstract. So, meron tayo dito abstract class na vehicle. So, public abstract class vehicle. Now, we will be declaring the following data fields here. We have power source. We also have private int wheels. Meron din tayong protected. So I would like this to be protected. Now, we also have a constructor here in which public vehicle. Tapos, it will now include a power source and wheels. So dito, I would like to call the power source na method. Yan. I'd like to call here the power source method. I would like to call the set wheels na method in which sa loob ng parameter na yan, we have wheels. We also have price here. Tapos, we will be creating the get methods for each of the set method na create natin. So, we have public string power source. Get power source. Okay. Let's return here power source. We also have public int get wheels. Return wheels. Yan. Ano pa yung isa? Get price. So, meron din tayong public int get price. And let's return the price itself. So far, so good. No? So, we will also be entering the following set methods. So, meron tayong mga set methods natin dito in which will assign values to the power source and the wheels field. So, dito, meron tayong public void set power source. We have string source. Ayan. Tapos, I would like to reference that. We also have public void set wheels. And, yung set wheels natin dito, this should be num wheels, number of wheels in short. And, meron tayong wheels dito is equal to num wheels. So, it will simply get the value. Tapos, for the set price method, this will be an abstract method. So, each subclass you eventually create that represents the different vehicle types will have a unique prompt for the price and a different maximum allowed price. So, let's do that. Meron tayo ditong public abstract void set price, for example. And so, dito. Now, we will be extending this abstract class here, diba? So, nakaka-create na tayo ng abstract class vehicle, but we cannot really instantiate any objects from this class. But then, we can extend this class to be able to create any vehicle-related objects. So, next is for us to create a sailboat na class that will simply extend the entire vehicle. Yan. This class here is concrete. That is, you can create actual sailboat class na meron tayo. So, for example, meron tayong sailboat class dito. And, yung sailboat na to, ayan, yung sailboat na to, it will simply extend the vehicle. Diba? So, let's create here, since meron tayong, mamaya dito, J option pane. Gawa tayo ng ganyan lang. Tapos, it will produce an error. Siyempre, dahil hindi pa tapos yung program natin. Pero tingnan natin kung ano yung magiging error nito. Yan. So, we will be implementing some particular methods as well. So, public class, sailboat, extends vehicle. Okay. So, extend natin yan. We will be declaring a length. Yan. And we also have here what we call the constructor, diba? Now, the sailboat constructor here, it will call its parent's constructor and send two arguments to provide values. Yan, for the power source and wheels value. So, we have here public sailboat. Tapos dito we will be calling here wind, for example. Ano to? Power source, diba? So, string. Tapos meron ka ditong wheels. So, ganyan siya. So, super. Tapos we will be calling the set length method. Ayan. Medyo di ko alam kung bakit nagkakaroon tayo ng error. Pero para mas safe, baguhin ko yung let's refactor this one para mas safe. Hindi siya safe kasi na same yung package and same yung class. So, let me refactor this para mas sure tayo. Vehicle abstract sample. Ayan, so vehicle abstract sample. Ayan, which is good. Para sure lang, diba? So, set length. We also have here, ano ba yung ilalagay ko dito? Yung set length naman. So for the set length, public void set length. Ayan. So, nawala ng error. Alright, next. So, inside the set length here, let's put here a string entry in which yung entry ngayon dito will simply ask the user to, show input dialog, null, enter sailboat length, for example, in feet. Tapos, the length here will now be getting integer, length integer that parse int entry. Okay, so dyan lang natin siya basically nilagay, no? Next, public int get length naman, and we'll simply return the length, whatever na tinype natin dito. Next, yung concrete na kasi natin dito, sailboat class, it should contain the set price method because the method is, of course, abstract in the parent classes. Ito. So, abstract siya, di ba? So, required yan na meron yan dito. Ngayon. Assume that the sailboat has a maximum price of like, for example, $100,000. We are safe to add here a public void set price. Yan. Kung napansin nyo na wala ng error, it's also safe to add an override annotation. Diba? So, para at least na-override lahat ng nandito. So, basically, wala naman laman to. Abstract to eh. So, dito, lagay natin dito is string entry, for example. Tapos, si final int, max natin na 100,000. Tapos, si entry. Okay, option pane, dot show, input dialog. We have here null, enter the sailboat price, for example. Price is equal to integer that parse int. Lagyan natin si entry. Now, if the price is greater than the maximum value, of course, the price here will now get the value of max itself. So, kung nag-type tayo dito ng like 200,000 pesos, so of course, yung 200,000 pesos, yun yung magiging max value naman ngayon. Okay? Now, we have here what we call the another method na ilalagay natin dito. We have what we call the method na toString methods, in which we'll simply convert any object to a string. Now, you can actually override that particular method for this class by writing your own version as follows. So, gawin natin to. Maglalagay tayo dito ng toString na method. Okay. So, public string to... Lagay din tayo dito ng override annotation, in which sa loob nito, we will simply be returning tapos yung get length natin dito. This one, it will simply return the length plus foot sailboat is powered by the power source, in which ang power source natin is wind. Diba? Plus, and it has blank. Get wheels natin dito. Kunin natin si get wheels plus wheels and costs. $sign here. Lagay tayo dito na kunin natin si get price method. Yan. So, gumagana na ba to? Hindi pa kasi wala pa tayong main method. So, gawa pa tayo ng isa, no? Okay na to eh. So far, so good na tayo dito sa may sailboat class natin. So, let's create another method here in which we will be extending. Itong abstract class natin na vehicle ulit, we will be extending or we will be descending from this one and we will create another class. So, this time, create tayo dito ng class, I'll name that as bicycle. Yan. So, si bicycle naman, no? Si bicycle, I hope nakikita, no? So, dito ko na ilagay sa... Yan. Itong si bicycle ngayon, extend natin. si vehicle ulit. So, kagaya ng kanina, let's import here javax.swing dot ganyan. Syempre may questions, diba? So, we have a constructor public bicycle. Yan. Tapos sa loob nito, I'll be calling the constructor and yan. Tapos ano yung isa dito? Wheels, kung ilan yung wheels niya. So ano yan? Dito yan nanggagaling. Ito yung tinatawag natin sa vehicle na to. Okay, so let's also set the price. Tatawagin ulit natin si set price. Public void set price. Yan. So mawala ng error, di ba? So we have, of course, I think same lang ito. Nito, si string entry. Pero this time, palitan natin ito ng yung maximum niya is $4,000 lang. For example. File int max entry price is equal to max. Okay, so price. Yeah, so far so good. Enter the bicycle. And enter the bicycle price. Okay, so that's for the set price. So kagaya rin na kanina, we have here an override annotation for the public string to string method in which we'll simply return kung ano man yung type natin dito kanina, no? So, re-return natin the I think this should be the bicycle. The bicycle is powered by, tapos kunin natin si get power source. It has get wheels and wheels cost get price. So ganun din siya. 'Di ba? Wala kang problema. Kumbaga inulit lang natin. Pinakita ko lang na kapag ka nag-instantiate ka ulit ng panibagong object like bicycle or any other vehicle that will extend the data fields from the vehicle, the vehicle class, which is an abstract. It's possible. So this time, create tayo ngayon ng class in which we'll simply, demonstrate the methods na gagamitin natin or ginamit natin in particular. So dito sa demo vehicle natin, we have a main method, public static void main string args. Tapos tawagin ko si sailboat. I'll name that as a boat. Tapos new sailboat. Tawagin ko rin dito si bicycle. I'll name that as a bike. Tapos new bicycle. So ito naman, it will simply, print the contents of the two different objects here. So, meron tayo ditong import javax.swing ulit, which is JOption pane. Gagamitin natin ulit siya. Tapos dito, we have JOption pane. Let's show message dialog, null. We have here vehicle descriptions. Ayan. We have ganyan. Tapos add a boat to string. Basically, ito yung tinatawag natin. Nilagay natin lahat yan. A boat to string plus next line plus a bike dot to string. So again, purpose na itong to string na to, dito talaga natin nilagay lahat ng pinagbabato natin na values, 'di ba? So to string natin. So kung i-run natin to ngayon, of course, yung sailboat price natin, which is for example ganyan, length in feet, bicycle price, which is for example, and there you go. 'Di ba? So if you want to add some more vehicle, you can actually continue working on with this program. So, ganun po ang example natin ng abstract classes. Mahirap ba? Hindi, madali lang siya. Mahirap lang siyang i-implement, pero madali lang naman talaga siya. Madali siyang intindihin. I mean, baliktad. Madaling i-implement, mahirap intindihin sa umpisa. Kaya nga napaka-importante na meron tayong sample program kagaya ng nakikita natin ngayon. So, go ahead and take a screenshot of this one before siya totally mawala. Alright, so let's continue here. Let's continue our discussion dito. We can actually create arrays of subclass objects. So, yung ginagawa natin kanina kasi dito, ito, isa-isa natin siyang ini-instantiate, no? So, this time, we can create an array of subclass object. It's really possible for that. Now, every array element must be the same data type. And objects can also be declared and placed inside an array. So, yun nga. When you create an array in Java, you are not constructing objects, but instead, you are creating space for reference to objects. Now, in other words, although it is convenient to refer to an array of objects, every array of objects is really an array of object references. So therefore, we can place an object or a class inside an array. Now, for example, even though employee is an abstract class and every employee object is either a salaried employee or an hourly employee subclass object, it can also be convenient to create an array of generic employee references. So pwede, instead na isa-isa mo siyang instantiate, pwede mo siyang i-store na lang sa isang array, di ba? Likewise, an animal array might contain individual elements that are dog, cow, or snake objects, as long as every employee subclass has access to the calculate pay method, just like yung earlier na example natin. Pero this time, we have the calculate pay method for employee. Now, for animal subclass, for as long as we have the speak method, you can manipulate an array of superclass objects and invoke the appropriate method for each subclass members. The following statement creates an array of 3 animal references. So, possible po yan. We have the animal object with an array with a name animal ref and declaring 3 different animals dito. So, kagaya na itong example code natin dito. So, since you have declared an animal or you are calling the animal class here, yan, you are now safe or you can safely assume na pwede mo siya ngayong tawagin isa-isa or instantiate isa-isa, but then this time using array. So, si animal reference 0 will now call or instantiate the dog. Animal reference 1 will now instantiate the cow. Animal reference 2 will now instantiate the snake. In which, kapag gumamit ka ng for loop, pwede mo na ngayong basically, gamitin sila lahat or tawagin sila lahat na minsanan using a simple for loop. Now, let's take a look at here sa sample program natin in which you will be creating an array of vehicle references. Yung example din natin kanina, gagamitin natin yun, pero i-modify nang natin. So, within the application, you assign the sailboat objects and the bicycle objects to the same array. Then, because the different object types are stored in the same array, you can easily manipulate them by using a for loop. So, tingnan natin kung paano natin yan isa-solve, no? Let's go ahead and balik tayo dito. Now, we can simply open here a new file. Asan yung? Ito. I'll name this as vehicle database. Yan. So, si vehicle database, lagay ko na lang muna siya dito. Yan. Si vehicle database kasi, ito yung magiging, kumbaga, panibagong main method natin. So, ko to. Oops. Ko muna ito. Tanggalin ko muna ito. Yan. So, this will be our new main method. Public static void main string args. There you go. And we can simply create here an array. Vehicle, I'll name that as vehicle. New vehicle 5. So with 5 ngayon. Okay? So, lagyan natin dito si X. Subscript lang yan para mamaya. So, next here, we can actually create a for loop. Yan. Sa loob ni for loop, we have an x is equal to 0 for as long as hindi niya pa nare-reach yung length niya. Yan. X++. We have here user entry. Tapos, you have int vehicle type, for example. Yan. Si user entry ngayon, siya yung mag-ask ng user. So, jOptionPane dot show input dialog null. Please select the type of \n natin. Vehicle you want to enter. So, \n ulit natin yan. 1 is for sailboat. \n ulit natin yan. 2 is for bicycle. And so on. So, dugtungan na lang natin yan. No? So, for now, if the vehicle type, ilalagay natin yan dito sa vehicle type ngayon. Integer that parse int user entry. Yan. So, if the vehicle type is equal to 1, halimbawa pumili tayo ng word na sailboat, ilalagay natin yan ngayon kay value ni x, which is, for now, is 0. So, yun yung i-instantiate natin ngayon dito. Otherwise, since dalawa lang naman yung ginawa natin, diba? So, lagay natin dito, if kung ano yung magiging value ni x na pangalawa ngayon. So, bicycle. So, ganun siya. A very easy way to at least call the different methods that we have created earlier. So, bicycle, wala akong new. Yan. Now, this actually simply, instantiate the object sailboat or bicycle based on what we have entered here. So, after we enter the information for each vehicle, we will now be displaying the array contents by typing the following codes. So, this is the end of the for loop. Yan. We can simply create here what we call the string buffer, out string. Tapos, meron tayong string buffer dito. Now, for every x is equal to 0, tapos yung vehicle.length niya, hindi pala yan dito. Dito dapat, Dito dapat yan. Ayan. So, we have x++ outstring.append. We will be appending. What are we trying to append here? Yung mismong plus ano ba to? X plus 1 plus ganyan. So, ibig sabihin yung value ni x dito. So sa ngayon, 0 yung value niya, di ba? So, kapag ka-type natin ni si 1, ilalagay natin yung sailboat na na class kay vehicles 0. Ngayon, so i-append natin ngayon. So, vehicle 1, magiging 1 na yung value dito. Di ba? Tapos, we will be append, what are we trying to append here? The vehicles. Tatawagin natin si toString method. Ayan. Tapos, we will be calling a show message dialog. Tapos, our available vehicles include \n outstring. So, kung ano man yung nilagay natin dito, no? So, kung ita-type natin yan or kung i-run natin tong program na to, so far, so good. Working naman to. And so, magtatanong si user ng gusto nating class. So, kung sailboat, papasok yan dito ngayon sa sailboat class na to. Diba? So, nung pumasok siya sa sailboat class na to, ibig sabihin, it's asking the user to input the price, tapos yung length niya in feet. Tapos, yun, nagkaroon tayo ng error dito in which we cannot invoke the object to string because vehicle X is null. And dito tayo sa vehicle abstract sample. So, meron tayo ditong pagkakamali pa rin sa may main method natin. So, try natin itong ayusin, no? Dahil ko ayusan, no? May error pa rin. So, dun. We cannot invoke this because vehicles X is null according here. So, ito. Ayan, so may mga binago lang ako dito. Actually, halos wala naman. Pero, tignan nyo na lang, no? Tignan nyo maigi. Pero, okay na tayo dito sa vehicle eh. Ito lang. Karoon lang ako ng error dito sa pagkakasulat ng iba. So, indentation and some particular parts of the code. So, I think so far everything is working perfectly fine. Ayan. So, vehicle, wala namang binago. Bicycle, wala namang binago. Alright. So, dito tayo. The idea of this one is, once again, yan. Mag-enter tayo ng vehicle, pero 5 times. So, pero although we have 2 different choices, tignan natin, i-run natin yung code. For the first one, we'd like to enter a sailboat in feet, another sailboat in feet, this time a bicycle with a price, another bicycle with its price, and lastly, ito. So, magpapakita dapat dito yung mga vehicles na nilagay natin. So, that's actually how you create class. Tapos, ilagay siya sa array. Ngayon. Diba? So far, so good. Do you have any questions so far? None. Alright, so let's continue our discussion here. Let's actually talk about how to achieve some good software design using inheritance, since we have been talking about the way on how we create a Java program applying the concepts of inheritance. Let's talk about how it is really possible for us to have and achieve a very good software design using inheritance. Hindi lang kasi ito sa Java, pero most of the time, ginagamit ang inheritance sa lahat ng klase ng aspects ng system development natin. Mobile development yan, web development, game development, or other systems na pwede natin i-develop yan. Now, for example, let's actually take a look at this one. When an automobile company designs a new car model, that company doesn't actually build every component of the new car from scratch, diba? Alam naman natin yan because the company might design a new feature completely from scratch. Now, for example, at some point, someone designed the first airbag. However, many of a new car's features are simply modifications of existing features. And the manufacturer might create a larger gas tank or more comfortable seats. But even these new features still possess many properties of their predecessors in the older models. Most features of our new car models are not even modified. Instead, existing components such as those air filters and windshield wipers are included in the new model without any particular changes. Just like in Java, similarly, you can actually create some powerful computer programs more easily if most of their components are used either as is or with somehow slight modification. Inheritance doesn't actually give you the ability to write programs that you couldn't write otherwise. And if Java did not allow you to extend those classes, you could create every part of the program from scratch. That's a good thing about inheritance. Kaya nga tayo merong inheritance para hindi mo na paulit-ulit na ginagawa yung mga methods or any other parts of your classes ng paulit-ulit, di ba? Inheritance actually made our lives easier in terms of the coding. And most of the professional programs are out there constantly create new class libraries for use with Java programs. And having these classes available makes programming large systems more manageable. Well, imagine yourself if gagawin nyo pa ng isa-isa ang classes or methods sa loob ng JOption pane, or let's say, yun nga, yung javax.swing natin na ginagamit natin for JOption pane. Of course, sobrang haba na magiging code natin. That's a good thing about those classes na built-in na or nagawa na ng iba. It's actually because they have, given us an opportunity to make our lives easier in terms of the coding. Instead of us na ulitin natin ng paulit-ulit yung part kung paano mag-implement ng JOption pane, for example, gagamitin na lang natin yung keywords na dinetermine or nilagay nung mismong gumawa nun, diba? Now, you already have used many SS classes, such as, system and string, such for example, for printing, system.out.println, diba? And in these cases, your programs are easier to write than if you had to write these classes yourself, as I have mentioned earlier. Now, when you create those useful extendable classes, you and other future programmers gain different and several advantages such as the following. Number one, the subclass creators save development time because much of the code needed for the class already has been written. Ito yung lagi kong sinasabi. Instead na uulitin nyo pa ulit yung mga classes na ginawa mo, just using or inheriting those, keywords na ginawa nung isang programmer natin, mas madali na yung buhay. Hindi mo na siya paulit-ulit na gagawin ulit. Diba? Subclass creators save testing time because the superclass code already has been tested and probably used in a variety of situations already. So in other words, most of those superclasses that we are using as of the moment is very reliable on its own. Programmers who also create or use new subclasses already understand how those superclasses works. So the time it takes to learn the new class feature is reduced. And lastly, when you somehow create a new subclass in Java, the superclass maintains its integrity. And when you consider classes, you might actually think about the commonalities among them. And then you can create superclasses from which to inherit. And you might be rewarded professionally when you see your own superclass extended by others in the future. Well, baka isa sa inyo dito maka-invento ng sarili niyang programming language or at least makapaglagay pa ng mga panibagong class library sa mga existing programming language that we have. From that alone, of course, pwede kayong makaambag sa society natin in terms of the programming languages. So I am actually hoping na one of you guys in the future might actually have that kind of talent, 'di ba? Kung gusto nyong mas matuto pa or mas maging deep yung knowledge nyo in terms of class libraries or yun nga, mas mapagaling nyo pa yung knowledge nyo sa programming, I suggest you enroll in computer science na course because IT focuses more on, it focuses more on programming. Unlike computer science, it focuses more on the theories, on how you create those libraries and implement that. And I mean, those information technology guys are the one who will implement the theories na ginawa mo. So basically talaga nanggagaling ang lahat ng mga programming languages natin. Lahat ng yan, ginagawa yan ng mga computer science majors. So, tignan natin, di ba? Kung sino yung mga magiging comsci sa inyo one of these days. Okay? So, let's actually try to move on here. And since we have been talking about inheritance and of course how to make or achieve a good software design, let's also create and use what we call the interfaces. Say for example, yung mga C++ and C# programming languages that we have right now, it allows any subclass to inherit from more than one parent class. So hindi lang pala isa ang pwedeng ma-inherit. So kung mag-extend tayo dito ng mga kung mag-extend tayo dito ng class, pwede kasi tayo mag-extend ng panibago pang parent class aside from the existing parent class na pwede nagamit natin. 'Di ba? So, for example, you might create an insured item class that contains data fields pertaining to each possession for which you have insurance. Now, the capability to inherit from more than one class is what we call multiple inheritance. Although, in reality, ako kasi personally, I don't really use multiple inheritance because it's actually somehow a difficult concept and nakakalito, to be honest. It's more confusing. It's far more confusing. Rather than inheriting a single class, 'di ba? Although pag-usapan pa rin natin siya kasi it's really important for us to at least have an idea how multiple inheritance are working. Yun nga, inexperienced programmers use it when they encounter many problems, and programmers have to deal with the possibility that variables and methods in the parent class might have an identical names, which create conflict when the child classes use one of the names. So you already have learned that a child class constructor must call its parent's class. And this task actually becomes more complicated when a subclass has two or more parents. Now, to which class should super classes refer when a child class has multiple parents? Now, for all of those kind of reasons that we have, multiple inheritance is prohibited in Java. Okay? Pero sa C# kasi and C++, hindi naman gaano. Although ginagamit siya sa game development, pero yun nga, mas mahirap. This actually, a class can inherit from a superclass that has inherited from another superclass, but then this represents single inheritance with multiple generations. However, Java doesn't actually allow class to inherit directly from two or more parents. Alright, now, however, sa Java, meron tayong tinatawag na, alternative to multiple inheritance, in which what we called interface. It's like inheritance, but then this is what we call interface. It looks much like a class, except that all of its methods are implicitly public and at the same time abstract. And all of its data items, if any, are implicitly public as well. And final, an interface is a description of what a class does, and but now, how it is done. It declares method headers. Tignan natin tong example natin tong animal and dog classes from the earlier examples that we had earlier. Ito. The figures here shows these classes with dog inheriting from animal. So we have here the abstract class animal with the name string name with an abstract method which is speak, which alam naman natin na pag may abstract na method, lahat po ng method ng child classes na mag-inherit ng animal should have and required to have a speak method. So kagaya ni dog method dito, meron tayo public void speak. Ganun din. Now, take note, we have here a public class working dog, which is actually another class, but then it extends the dog, which extends the animal as well. So, ibig sabihin, whatever data fields that we have here sa dog, including the speak method, gagamitin niya ni working dog, and at the same time, gagamitin din lahat ng data fields na meron kay animal. Pero take note, it also implemented a worker. Yan, si worker ngayon na interface. Now, yung worker ngayon dito na interface, it actually include a public abstract void method, which is a work method, which actually works the same as the abstract method speak natin dito. Ano ibig sabihin na ito? Kung i-analyze natin maigi yung program dito, the public void set hours of training. Ito. So basically, this is the get and the set. And we have here the public void work method. The public void work method here is simply called the speak method. Saan makikita yung speak method na yan? Dito, kay dog. Diba? So basically, it simply printed out some basic system.out print line message here. Now, the demo working dog application in this one, in this example here, it simply instantiates two working dog objects, and each object can use the following methods. Tingnan natin. So we have here working dog. Itong working dog na to, ito. Yan. So we have a sheep herder, tapos a seeing eye dog. So we instantiated them, both of them. And a sheep herder, that set name, simply uses the set name method from, saan natin makikita yung set name? Since in-extend si dog, ito, tapos in-implement si worker, tapos si dog, in-inherit niya si animal, yung set name na yun, dito yan pupunta ngayon kay animal. So once you have actually put or pass a parameter which is a name, Simon the Border Collie and Sophie the German Shepherd, it will automatically get or be transferred or be transferred to the animal abstract class, yung parent class natin. Diba? Tapos itong si sheep herder, that set hours of training 40. Alin ang tinatawag natin dyan? Ito, itong set hours of training. Ngayon. So basically, itong set hours of training, nandito yan sa class working dog pa rin. So, simple, di ba? Napaka-simple niyang intindihin. Pero ang ginagawa lang nito is basically, para lang siya multiple inheritance. So, kumbaga, meron kang interface, pinaltan mo lang yung word mo ng interface ngayon. Di ba? So, yan, we have here the get name, in which we'll simply call the get name method from the animal class. Dito. Sa abstract class natin. Tapos si speak naman, alam naman natin na tinatawag yan dito kay dog. Tapos si work, tinatawag yan dito kay interface worker, pero nandito rin yung kay working dog since we implemented the worker yan as interface. And so on. So it's actually it's somehow easy to take a look kapag may example na tayo, pero kapag may problem na, I think mahihirapan tayo siyang gawin. That's why I also have prepared here a sample problem to better understand how this interface can actually work properly. Okay? So, tingnan na rin natin itong example natin dito on how to create interfaces to store related constants. So, based from the example here, we have the main method, okay? And we have a pizza demo. which implements the pizza constants. Yung keyword na implement natin dito, this simply means that we are trying to implement another class that is an interface. Tapos sa loob ng interface na yun, we have the following variables together with their value. So we have small diameter, large diameter, tax rate, string company, and yeah, yun lang pala, diba? So inside the main method here, you have declared another variable which is special price with the system.out.print line. Pero dito tayo pumunta sa may asan yun? Ito. So basically, since you implemented pizza constants, pwede mo na ngayong tawagin pwede mo na ngayong tawagin tong small diameter, large diameter, tax rate, and other variable from the other interface pizza from the public interface pizza constants class na meron tayo. So ganun siya, 'di ba? So para siyang kaya nga naka-public meaning it's accessible by anyone kahit saan ka. So pwede mo siyang matawag. Yun ngayon yung purpose ng tinatawag natin na interface. And let's try to take a look at here sa may example natin on how to use an interface or create an insured interface for with classes that represents object that can be insured. For example, you might use this interface with class such as jewelry or house, and you extend vehicle to create an insured car class that implements the insured interface. And then you write a short program that instantiates an insured car object. So gamit nung natin kanina, ang tawag dito, nung program natin. Okay? So let's create here, let's create a new file dito sa may vehicle abstract natin. Tapos let's create a class here, and I'll actually name this as insured. Yan. .java. So si insured.java dito, hindi na siya class pero interface na siya. Yan. So nakikita naman, no? So we have public abstract void set coverage. Tapos we also have here public abstract void get coverage. Yan. Public interface insured. So pansin natin, nag-iba rin yung icon nung interface, di ba? Kagaya rin ng abstract, nag-iba rin yung icon. Yan. So, let's actually leave this for now. And let's create here another file, which is, let's name this as insured car. Yan. Si insured car naman, nakikita ba? Ito na lang sa baba. Yan. Si insured car, okay, we will be extending, of course, the vehicle. Tapos, at the same time, we will be implementing yung insured natin. Ito. So, for now, makakita ka dyan ng error. Hayaan muna natin yan. Pero basahin natin yung error. Ano yung error dito? The class insured car must either be declared abstract or implement abstract method set price. Well, kung natatandaan nyo, yung set price natin dito, it's an abstract. So, required po yan na meron dito since we also extended the vehicle. So, therefore, required na meron tayong dito mamaya, set price. Okay? So, let's try first to add here a variable coverage. Yan. Tapos si constructor natin, insured car, public insured car, ayan, oops, tapos we have here the following parameters na ipapass natin. We have powered by gas and number of wheels, tapos tatawagin natin si set coverage. Set coverage, dito yun magagaling, tatawagin natin yan. Okay. So, we will now be implementing the set price. Oops. Ito. We have here public void. Set price. And so, dapat mawala na yung error. Pero, syempre, may error pa rin yan. So, we will be implementing the set price here. That will actually require the vehicle. It will be required by the vehicle class. Dito yung mga galing. So, ano natin yan? It will simply accept yan Ano siguro to? Enter car price to eh. Entry is equal to J option pane. Oops. So nakalimutan ko maglagay dito ng import javax.swing dot ganyan. This should be J option pane that show input dialog. Tapos null enter car price. Okay, no? Tapos si price, lagay natin yun kay parser, integer that parse int, entry. Tapos parang yung kanina lang, if the price, yan, price is equal to max. Kung napapansin nyo, nagkaroon tayo ng error kay max. Let's see, because I have, I think nakalimutan kong i-declare siya dito. Final int max is equal to $60,000. 23. Yan. Now we will be, implementing the set coverage and the get coverage methods required by the insured class. So this time, the set coverage method will now set the coverage value for an insured car to 90% of the car's price. So, lagay natin yan somehow dito. So, public void set coverage. Tapos, meron din tayo ditong public int get coverage. Yun, di ba? So, nawala na yung error natin, no? Nung meron na tayo nitong setters and getters natin dito. So, public abstract void. Ito. So, we will be returning here. Ano i-return ko dito? Return coverage. Yan. So, dito yan. The get coverage clashes with get coverage. Mamaya, i-fix natin lahat yan. So, public void set. The coverage value here will now be typecasted into int multiplied by the price multiplied by 0.9. Yan. So, tingnan muna natin kung saan tayo nagkaka-error. May error tayo dito. So, this is public int get coverage. Yan. It clashes with get coverage in vehicle abstract. Nasaan yung vehicle abstract sample natin? Ito. Ito yung mismong package natin, no? Insured. So, dito. Mamaya, ayusin natin yan para mas maganda. Kasi, hindi naman natin pwedeng ilagay yan dito. Talaga magkaka-error yan, di ba? Dito na lang. Next. Let's create a toString. Itong toString natin, yung parang kanina, dito natin ilalagay. Public string to string. And then we will simply return the insured car is powered by get power source plus, and it has blank get wheels, okay, plus the number of wheels costs $, plus ano ba get price plus whatever na inalagay natin dito and is insured for $, dito. Let's get coverage. Ayun. So far, so good. Ayan. Tapos, I think, time na rin para makakreate tayo dito ng panibagong main method. Burahin ko ulit ito. Ito main method natin. Mamaya ko na lang ito ayusin itong public int get coverage na to. Okay? Kasi talagang magkaka-error pa yan for now. Siyempre, magkaka-error pagka ginawa mong void yan. Kasi nga get eh. So, set get. Ayan. This should be int. Okay. Ayun. Yan, so na-fix ko na, no? Gawa tayo ngayon dito ng panibagong Java class. Asan yun? Let's name this as the main method, pero insured car demo. So this will be your main method. Public static void main string args. Okay, so let's import a package here. The option pane. Now, I would like to call the insured car, the insured car.java natin. So, insured car, I'll name that as my car. And so, instantiate tayo ng object. The option pane that show message dialog. Then, null. Ano ilalagay natin dito? Let's call the my car that show, that toString. So basically, whatever things na ginawa natin dito sa insured car.java method natin, especially for the input, diyan siya ngayon nagpakita. Basic, di ba? Oops, may error ako, which is napaka-basic din, semicolon. Yeah, errors happen, Okay, mag-alala. Ayan, so enter car price, for example. Ayun, so automatic, nagpakita rin yung output natin. So basically, when we say insured class, it's like the way on how we inherit multiple classes or parent classes. But then, pinaltan lang talaga natin yung word natin as insured, or interface na tinatawag. Ayan. So, kindly take a screenshot of this one para at least may idea kayo or may sample kayong code na pwedeng gamitin for future purposes. Okay. So, I think this will be the last part of our advanced inheritance concept topic, in which what we call the anonymous inner classes. Ito yung isa sa mga pinaka-challenging and nakakalito na part ng Java programming, because we will be using anonymous inner classes from now on hanggang sa pagdating natin ng grade 12 ninyo, sa CP12a and CP12b. When we say anonymous inner class, it's actually a class that has no name and is defined inside another class. You create an anonymous inner class to save some work when you need a simple class that is instantiated only once in a program. Now, you use the new operator to create an inner class and to simultaneously create an instance of it. The instance either extends a superclass or implements an interface, but you do not use the keywords extends or implements when defining the class. Now, this figure here simply contains a program that demonstrates using an anonymous inner class, and the program prompts the user for a capacity for a washing machine that simply works. Tingnan natin, no? Try to analyze and try to determine kung alin dyan ang anonymous inner class. Okay, nakita nyo ba? The anonymous inner class, dito po tayo analyze natin maigi. You have the main method, but then anything is actually placed inside the main method. So you have a scanner, which simply tells our program that we want to input, or we want to ask the user to input something. Now, so we will simply enter the capacity for washing machine in pounds. Tapos si pounds na variable will simply get the value whatever we inputted from this statement here. And this time, tatawagin natin si worker, washing machine is equal to worker. And kung mapapansin natin dito, si worker washing machine, itong si class na to, diba, this is an instantiation. Pero instead of us instantiating the worker, diba, the worker na class in a separate class, we simply added here an open and closing, an open and closing curly braces. Tapos, nag-terminate ka dito using semicolon. So, meron parang pag ganyan yan, tapos nandito. Tapos, inside this one is the method kung saan nandito yung pinakagagawin mo. So, again, nandito pa tayo sa main method. And once we call the washing machine object.work, it will simply call this work method here. So, in idea, the worker here is a separate class. Pero this time, an anonymous inner class simply means that you are actually trying to put all of the methods no class na in-instantiate mo inside that particular class itself. So, parang ito, yung public void work, nandito na yun sa loob nito. Ayan, no? Diba? So, meron ka na ring semicolon dito. So, you converted this entire instantiation of a new object into an anonymous inner class. So, it must either implement an interface or extend another class. Ayan. In the future, makaka-experience pa tayo nito in mga ganitong klaseng, examples. So, for now, let's try nyo muna itong gawin on your own. Try to understand kung paano siya nag-work properly. And make sure to follow how it was written. Ayan. Okay? So, dito naman tayo, anonymous inner class, and we also have what we call the Lambda Expression. Ang Lambda Expression naman, it creates an object that implements a specific type of interface known as a functional interface. When we say functional interface, it is a type of interface that contains just one abstract method. So, in other words, the worker interface qualifies as a functional interface. So we have here an example program. We have pounds. Ito. Pero tignan nyo kung paano ginawa dito si Lambda Expression. So you have worker, washing machine, tapos equals, open and close, parenthesis, followed by the hyphen and a greater than symbol. This simply means that you are actually creating an object that simply implements a specific type of interface. Yung functional interface natin. So usually, hindi naman ito masyadong ginagamit, pero para ka lang din nag-instantiate ng class, but then kinonvert mo lang siya into a Lambda expression. And in your CP12b, lalo na kapag gumagawa na tayo ng mga 2D objects, talagang gagamitin din natin si Lambda expression. Pero for now, example ko lang muna yan. Pero you can go ahead and try this on your own para at least magkaroon kayo ng idea on how this can be properly implemented on a Java program. Okay, so do you have any questions so far before we actually not really end the problem, pero I think malapit na rin tayong matapos kasi nandito na tayo sa may sample program natin in which I will be I'll be demonstrating. Okay, so let's go ahead and try to read and analyze the problem. So we have a very simple problem here. Create an abstract class. Yan. Book that includes a string field for the book's title and a double field for the book's price. So within the class, include a constructor that requires the book title and add two get methods. So nakikita niyo yung mga basic sample problem natin. No? Sinasabi na kung ano talaga yung gagawin mo. Ano yung implement mo, ano yung kailangan mong i-create, ano yung data fields na part niyan. And yun nga, one that returns a title and one that returns a price. So basically, ipoprovide naman sa'yo ng problem, di ba? Hindi naman siya totally parang pahulaan. Yan. Next is to include an abstract method named setPrice. Create two child classes of the book, fiction and non-fiction. Yan. So that alone is a class already, fiction and non-fiction. Each must include a setPrice method that sets the price for all fiction books to $24.99 and for all non-fiction books to $37.99. Write a constructor for each subclasses and include a call to set price within each. Write an application demonstrating that you can create both a fiction and a non-fiction book and display their fields. So, gawin muna natin itong 1A. Save the file as book.java, fiction.java, non-fiction, and usebook.java. So, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 different programs that we need to create. Huwag kayong ma-overwhelm. Madali lang yan. Everything is actually all in the mind. Take note. If you think that a task is hard, definitely it will be hard to solve. Just like any mathematical problems, always think that a mathematical problem is not a problem, but an opportunity for us to learn. So, huwag niyo isipin na mahirap yan. Opportunity yan para matuto. And lagi nyong i-mindset na easy lang yan. Diba? So, we have here book sample as a package. Let me go ahead and remove the following. So, gawa ko muna dito ng book. Ayan. Diba? So, si book. Ayan. So, ito yung magiging abstract class natin pala ito. So, public class, public abstract. Abstract class book. We have here ano yung nakalagay dito? Book's title, double field for the book's price. Okay. So we have protected string title and protected double price. Alright. So we have here a constructor. Ano yung nakalagay sa constructor? Nakalagay ba? Include a constructor that requires a book title and add two get methods. Okay. So we have here book string title. Ayan. Tapos this, the title is equal to title. And we have two get methods. Public string get title. Which will return the title itself. Tapos public double get price, which simply return the price. Pero ano yung sabi pa dito? Yun. Include an abstract method name set price. So meron ka ditong public abstract void set price. So magiging abstract yan. So meaning required po lahat ng magiging child method natin na magkaroon ng set price method. Next is for us to create two child classes of book, fiction and non-fiction. So meron tayo ditong fiction and non-fiction. So gawin natin yan. We have oops, ano ba yan? Fiction. Oops, bakit nandyan yan? Dapat nandito yan. Refactor natin. Ayan. Fiction and non-fiction. So, we have the book. We have siguro dito na lang to. Mas safe to pag yan. Ayan. Ganyan na lang muna, no? Para mas madaling intindihin. So, we have fiction and non-fiction na book. So, si fiction, trabahuin muna natin si fiction book dito. Si fiction, extend natin, inherit natin si book. Each must include a set price method. Okay? Write a constructor for each subclass and include a call to set price within each. Okay. So, no problem. Meron tayo ditong public fiction string title. Ayan. Meron din tayo ditong kukunin natin yung title from the book itself. This one. Then, we will be setting the price. And of course, lagay tayo ng override method kasi di ba required na ngayon na magkaroon ng ayan. Ito. So, the price is $24.99. Ano ulit yung data type ni price? Double. So, kinuha natin si double dito. So, ganun din kay non-fiction. Diba? Dito kay non-fiction, we will be extending. Let's inherit all the book data fields. Tapos, create tayo dito ng non-fiction constructor together with the string title and super title. Ayan. Tapos, meron din tayo dito override annotation for final void set price para mawala yung error. Let's also set the price to $37.99. $7.99. Is everything good? Yes, everything is good. So write an application demonstrating that you can create both a fiction and non-fiction book. So we have usebook.java. So gawa na tayo ng usebook.java dito. So create tayo ng panibagong program and usebook. So usebook, this will serve as our main method. Siyempre. Diba? So, dito yan. Or, lakihan ko na lang to. Yan. So, lakihan ko na lang to, no? Usebook. Yan. May i-inherit pa tayo? Wala. Diretso na yan. Public class usebook. Tapos si public static void main string args. Tapos, let's instantiate the fiction. Tapos, maglagay tayo dito ng title, which is, for example, Moby Dick. Na title. Diba? Tapos, kay non-fiction. Let's also instantiate a title. The Art of War, for example. The book. Tapos, we will simply be checking or, check lang natin yung price nila. Let's show the details. \n plus fiction book. Ba't lagi mali ang aking natatype? Fiction book plus fiction using the fiction object that get title. What else? Plus price, which is of course fiction that get price. Diba? Yeah, ganun lang pala siya. That's for the fiction book. Pag si non-fiction book, ganun din. Non-fiction. This is non-fiction. Yan. Non-fiction that get price. Okay, goods. Pero ito, may error pa tayo dito eh. New non-fiction dapat ito. New non-fiction. Tama ba yung pagkakaspell ko? Non-fiction. I am experiencing an error. Tingnan natin kung bakit. New non-fiction. The Art of War. Yan. So, run natin, no? Pag run natin yan, madali na. Di ba? So, basically, nagamit lang natin kung ano yung ginawa natin na abstract class, which is the book. And, tapos, yung abstract natin na price. Na method, which is a set price itself. Pero hindi pa dyan natatapos yung program because according here to the module, from the module, you need to create an application named book array in which you create an array that holds 10 books, some fiction and some non-fiction, and using a for loop, display details about all 10 books and save the file as book.array.java. So this time, meron tayong panibagong class dito in which i-create tayo ng panibago book.array. Book.array.java. Madali lang yan. Parang yung kanina lang din yan. Book array. And yung book array, dito ko ilagay. Kasi ito, mawawala na ito. Gawin ko na lang muna itong comment. From here up to here. Okay. So, dito tayo kay book array ngayon. This is also public static void main string args. So, let's use the book class. Tapos, dyan natin ilalagay yung mga title later on. So, set tayo ng array, name book array with a size of 10. Yan. Tapos, check natin if the boolean is fiction. Yan. Tapos, meron din tayo ditong string builder. Parang kanina. Title. Yan. And int I. Tapos, meron tayong scanner input is equal to new scanner system.in. Pero, nakalimutan ko maglagay dito ng import java.util.scanner. Okay. So, proceed tayo sa for loop. Ito yung medyo challenging dito eh, syempre. Tanggalin ko na nga lang ito. Dito tayo. For int I. Sige, lagay ko na rin. sorry. Yan. For initialization. for every length of the book, and system.out.println is the book fiction. If the book is fiction, we will actually try to determine. Yan. So, if the book is fiction, automatic papasok yan mamaya sa isang if-else statement. Enter the book's title. Yan. So, input the text line. Tapos yung title natin dito, new string builder input dot next line. Ayun, perfect. Now, if the book is fiction, what will happen? The initial value of any Boolean, declared variable is always true. If the Boolean is fiction, and di natin siya na-initialize, no? So, initialize natin yan dito as true. Para maganda. Yan. The book array with the current. Lalagay ko yan dito kay new fiction. Tapos si title, babato ko kay toString. So dito. Asan yung toString natin kanina kay fiction? Ito. So toString, gagawin ulit din natin yan later on. Diba? What else? Otherwise, book array, ayan, is non-fiction. Tapos, lagay din natin si title dot toString. So, basically, lahat ko convert niya into a single string. So, 10 times, magtatanong si program mo nito. Ayan. So, for every fiction na nilalagay mo yun dito. Pinapasok mo yun sa book array na to. So, yung si book array na to, pumapasok yun dito kay book, in which simply an abstract class. Diba? So, ganyan po siya. Next, print natin lahat ng mga books na meron. Yan. Now, we will show all of the books. There you go. Yeah, for every book, and for every book that we have, book array that length, I++, system.out.println, the book number, kung saan ba nag-start yung book natin, book number plus, I+1. Siyempre, hindi yan 0 mag-i-start eh. Kumbaga, book number 1 ang pagkakabasa dyan. Diba? So, plus is of fiction genre. Oops. Hindi pa ganyan. Paganyan muna. Yan. Paganyan muna. Its title is, pasok ko dito kay book array. Print natin yung libro na yan. So, get title natin. Plus, oops, get title plus \n plus, and its price is the price of the book. Book array, kung ano yung nakatutok na niya. Get whatever price is that. So, I think the price is still $24.99 or $37.99, diba? So, either. So far, so good. Pero may nakalimutan tayo dito, syempre. So, magtatanong kasi tayo dito eh. If and else statements. So, if, of course, if the book array, yan, if the first book is an instance, yan, is an instance of the fiction, kumbaga part siya ng fiction, what will happen? But if the book array is start of the fiction, I mean dito dapat yan, is part of the fiction, we will be placing this one. Yan. Otherwise, we will be repeating the same step. Pero this time, naka non-fiction. Yan. Its title is... Okay. So far, so good. Can we run this? Yes. So let's actually put some imaginary books. Pag nag-throw muna ako lahat, halimbawa, yan, through to Kakashi, through Uzumaki, through Kurama, through Itachi, through Luffy, through Nami, through. Tignan natin ha kung effective yung mismong program natin. Hinokami Kagura Chronicles. Ayun. I think everything is working perfectly fine. So based from what we have actually placed here, if we have placed a fiction book, if nag-throw tayo, pupunta yan dito sa fiction genre. Diba? Ayun. Goods na goods, diba? So, kung i-run natin ulit yung program tapos paghahalo-haluin natin, for example, this is false. Yan. If the book title is, ano lang natin, kunwari na lang. Kung true ito, kung true ulit ito, kung false ulit ito, false ulit, true, ayun. So, kung napansin nyo kapag non-fiction, yan, okay, no? Goods na goods naman siya. So, parang nga lang may mali. Kasi ang natatawag dito is, ito. Hindi natin totally naayos masyado itong part na to eh. Pero, you got the idea na kapag ka non-fiction yan, papasok yan dito sa may non-fiction. Tapos yung mismong book natin dito, or itong part na to, yan. So, get title, get price, book array. Yan. Goods na goods. Okay. Do you have any questions so far? Wala na, no? So, sige. Pasok tayo dito. So, may written work kayo ulit, and at the same time, performance check that you need to answer ulit. If you have some questions in the future, make sure na tanungin nyo lang ako. And once again, you can always rewatch this class para maintindihan nyo. And you need to watch this class once again kasi para ma-refresh kayo lagi sa mga discussion natin. Mukha lang nakakalito to, pero try nyo i-understand kung paano ko sinosolve yung mga problem na to. We only have limited time, kaya talaga medyo kailangan kong bilisan, and we only meet like once a week lang naman. So, kailangan ko talagang bilisan yung discussion natin. But anyways, my line is always open. So, if you want to ask me questions, go ahead lang. Okay? So, see you next week. Goodbye.